So here's Prairie City Wind, which is a song I wrote about 5 years ago, and I wrote it for my really good friend Al Forey, who also grew up in a prairie city. He grew up in Saskatoon, I grew up in Edmonton. And I actually wrote the lyrics to this song sitting in the Sugar Bowl, which is a little restaurant just by the High Level Bridge in Edmonton. Not that it matters, but anyway. But I was sitting there, and it was one of those kind of late February days in Edmonton where a Chinook had blown, and then everyone was just absolutely crazy with that exhilaration that happens when you get one of those warm winter days in Edmonton. And I just remember that feeling where anything can happen, and that's sort of what I was thinking about in this song. That wonderful release that spring brings on the prairies, right? So I have to say too that the chord structure for this song goes way back for me, to me listening in the very early 70s to Richie Havens, and especially the way he played a song that he'd written called Follow. It was a kind of an E pattern that I could play up and down the guitar, and it made me sound like I had open tuning, which of course I didn't. Anyway, so this is Prairie City Wind. Wind blows in off these fields, you can hear it in the eaves. It rattles the loose connections, lifts all the parched fall leaves, rolling like wheels off these bleached bare fields. It's gonna bring some rain, and sure enough spring's gonna show up, save us once again. I'm as brittle as these buildings, all these lame snaps and cracks. I can't even get my legs to move without feeling I'm stretched on a rack. And this morning in this wind and sun, I'm beginning to feel the sack. Spring's old-fashioned oil, it's gonna mend all that. Well, sometimes I moan for goodness, sometimes I avoid its gaze. Well, sometimes I get lost in my body for days and days and days. And sometimes I get tired of knowing back and forth ways. Sometimes I know I'm just a field, I need a bit of rain blowing off the prairie over these jumbled streets. Soften the corners we carry, paint ourselves into each week. Lift up our eyes into marbled skies, drench us in cool blue rain. Remind us just to be alive, ourselves as the earth again. So sometimes I moan for goodness, sometimes I avoid its gaze. Sometimes I get lost in my body, days and days and days. Sometimes I get tired of knowing these back and forth ways. Sometimes I know I'm just a field, I need a bit of rain blowing off the prairies over these jumbled streets. Soften the corners we carry, paint ourselves ourselves into each week. Lift up our eyes into marble skies. Drench us in cool blue rain. Remind us just to be alive, ourselves as the earth again. Sometimes I moan for goodness. Sometimes I avoid its gaze. Sometimes I get lost in my body for days and days and days. Well, sometimes I get tired of knowing these back and forth ways. Sometimes I know I'm just a feel. I need a bit of